Shalom, shalom, Kol Yisrael. First and foremost, hallelujah. All praise be due unto the Most High of our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. This is Nathanael Ben Levi.
Shalom, shalom. This is Yahoshua Ben Yahudah. And we're coming today to edify Hebraic thought and culture. Just going to give you a quick reference point for further information. And great and huge shout out to the One Nation Calendar Coalition as well as Dr. Yoel. You can seek their information at www.onenationcalendarcoalition.com and .org. Again, that's www.onenationcalendarcoalition.com and .org. And also seek Dr. Yoel's information at www.yazway7.com. Again, that is www.yazway7.com. And so, like I said before, we're going to go ahead and edify Hebraic thought with various concepts and recording of the days.
So in this video, we're going to build on our previous video dealing with the cycles of the heavens. In this video, we will be talking about what is considered Shabua, or the word for week in Hebrew. So, of course, a week is consistent of days. So I'm going to let Yahoshua break down what we are to do in our observance of the day.
Okay. And so a quick recap of what we discussed in our last video is the understanding of the word ereb in Hebrew, specifically meaning mixture, signifying evening. And so for a quick reference to that, I'll look to Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 19, simply signifying when Shabbat, specifically within this verse, but a day was officially recorded to have started. And it reads, "It happened when the gates of Jerusalem cast shadows before the Shabbat, that I spoke the order and the doors were closed, and I spoke the order not to open them until after the Sabbath." So this is Nehemiah speaking and signifying that Ereb, if you will, the evening, Friday, Yom Shishi, the evening of Yom Shishi signified the start of Shabbat, and it was held until the following evening. And so that was just a quick reference for the recap and understanding of, get you in the mindset of understanding what a day officially is.
So now that we have that understanding of what a day is, now how did Hebrews understand Shabua? How did we look at a week? So really, first and foremost, Bereshit chapter 1, Genesis chapter 1, and we look at the Most High's creation and how he set things up to be so. And when we look at Bereshit 1 in that record, it does say that the Most High created in 6 days and rested on the seventh day. Therefore, starting what we know of as a Shavua, a week. So we see that this Shavua is consistent of 7. So dealing with Shavua, there is 2 root words to the word Shavua. One of those words is Sheva, which actually means 7. And then another one is Shaba, which means to swear. Now we're gonna bring out some references to enlighten both of these points, because our forefathers did understand Shavua in the meaning of 7 and Shabbat to swear, and they would use this in double meanings and hidden meanings in different places. So we will be touching on that.
Okay.
So first we're going to jump into our first reference, which is in the book of Bereshit, Genesis chapter 29. Yahoshua, can you read that for us?
Can. So we'll be reading from, again, Genesis Bereshit chapter 29, starting at verse 28, from 26 to 28. And it reads, "Laban said, such is not done in our place, to give the younger before the elder. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other one too, for the work which you will perform for me yet another 7 years. So Jacob did so, and he completed the week for her, and he gave him Rachel, his daughter, to him as a wife."
All right, so we see here that this is dealing with our forefather Yaakov and how he had to work an extra week, as it is said, for Rachel. And then it later goes on in that record to say 7 more years. And we all know from the record of our forefathers that he worked 14 years for Leah and Rachel. So this being 2 weeks that he worked for both of these matriarchs. So in this case, in this instance, the verse uses Male Shavua, you should fill her week, Shavua, Zot Wanitna, referring to giving, referring to the giving of the daughter. So the Shavua is referring to the week here, but how later, as the record goes on to say, 7 days. So that's just one of the meanings dealing with Shavua, being Sheva, 7. So we're also going to go to Bereshit 21 and bring out where Shavua, the other root word, Shaba, to swear, is also made known, and how we're to understand a week and really the deeper meaning behind it as well.
Okay. And so we're looking at Bereshit, Genesis chapters 30 and 31.
Slikah 20, 21.
Excuse me. Slikah, chapter 21, verses 30 and 31. And it reads, "And he replied, because you are to take these 7 ewes from me, that it may serve me as a testimony that I dug this well. Therefore that place was called Beersheba, because there the 2 of them took an oath."
Okay. So this is dealing with when our forefather Abraham made a oath with Abimelech and his general Pichol when they came to make a covenant with Abraham. And at this time, as the 2 verses that Yehoshua just read, that it is dealing with Abraham giving them 7 ewes. So if we look here in the Hebrew, it says Sheba Kebashot or Kebasot, 7 ewes, Ha'ele, these ewes, in which that he was giving. And then it went on to say, in the 31st verse, it says, Al-Ken, therefore, Kara, called Lamakum Hahu, that place, Be'er Shabah, Be'er being well, Shabah being to swear. Why? Because it says, Ki Sham, for there, Nishbe'o, they made Shenehem, and they took an oath. So we can see, and Nishbe'u is from the same verb, Shabah, it's in the Nifal form, dealing with to swear. So this is also a root of Shabua, week, because we can see here that Abraham also gave Sheba 7 ewes, and then they made a vow, a Shabbat. So Abraham was using his understanding of the Hebrew language and culture to relay a much deeper message to Abimelech and Pichol when they were making that covenant, ultimately showing that, yet again, Shavua is dealing with 7. Our week is dealing with a consistent count of 7. So from here we're going to go into the book of Leviticus, chapter 23, and dealing with the verses dealing with the feast that we have known as Shavuot.
Okay. And so we will be reading from Leviticus, Vayikra, chapter 23, covering verses 15 and 16. And it reads, and for edification purposes, I do want to let you all know we are reading from the Art Scroll Stone Edition, Hebrew English Tanakh. All right, so we're going to go ahead and with Vayikra 23, chapter 23, verse 15. "You shall count for yourselves from the morrow of the rest day, from the day when you bring the omer of the waving. 7 weeks they shall be complete. Until the morrow of the 7th week you shall count 50 days, and you shall offer a new meal offering to Yod-Heh-Wah."
Okay, so we see here that with our feast of Shavuot, which is called Feast of Weeks, Shavuot being the plural word of Shavua for week. So when we're dealing with this and how we are commanded to keep it, we see that Shavua, we're supposed to count 7 weeks. And it goes on to say, there's 49 days, and then you count the next day being the 50th day. So even here in the Hebrew, it also as well checks out and refers to it saying, Sheba Shebatot, 7 Shabbats. That's what you should be counting to yourself. Sheba, 7. Shebatot, Shabbats, that you are to be counting to yourself.
49 days.
49 days.
Okay.
Because then it goes on to say in the 16th verse, it says, Ad Mipkarat, until from the tomorrow, HaShabbat, HaShebi'it, Tisferu, Kamishim Yom, 50th day. Kamishim coming from the word Kamish, 5, Kamishim, 50 day. So there's a very clear understanding of what a set week is according to Hebrew understanding. In the Hebrew community, there are different beliefs and understandings about how a week is to be governed and how it is to be counted. We do have some people in the Hebrew community who do go by waiting for the crescent moon to go about the counting of their week. The issue with this is in between months, because in between months you have a dark moon. Now a dark moon can last 2 to 3 days, but when we're dealing with the count of a week is a count of 7 set days. So if one is waiting from the end of one Shabbat at the closing of that moon, and they're waiting for the next Shabbat at the opening of the new moon, that week might be 8, 9 days for them, which completely throws off the static cycle that the Most High set in place in the book of Bereshit 1, dealing with how we are to view Shavua, week, 7, Sheva. It's all dealing with the same thing. So we have to truly humble ourselves and realize how the Most High set things in order and govern ourselves accordingly. So some other things, just really quickly, dealing with Shavua and dealing with a week. Is it lunar-based? Can't be lunar-based. Is it solar-based? It's debatable, but I would say debatable only because the sun does no more, no less than influence the mixture, the erev, as Yehoshua mentioned at the beginning of this video, at the closing of a day and the beginning of the new day, because we know that erev brings in the new day. Okay. So technically, yes, the sun does affect when the day and the week is coming about, because it does affect that erev, the changing of the light to the darkness. But in actuality, the week is not solar based. It's just a count of 7 days, a 7-day static count, because the count started before the sun and the moon were created, just to be mentioned. Bereshit chapter 1, the sun and the moon were created after the 7-day week count had already started. Okay. So I just wanted to just note that and make sure that that's understood.
Okay, sure.
So, Yehoshua, do you have any more?
Also, thinking in that same frame of thought, understanding that we can't measure the time when we're looking at days and measuring a week, and also correlating that into months, looking at years. It's literally the equivalent of looking at something as far as measurements are concerned. You're using, liters to measure, milliliters, if you will. So days to weeks, right? But then also on the other end, you're using ounces to pounds to look at, months in comparison to years. And so we can't necessarily use the same type of scale and like Netanyahu was just mentioning the moons, and how some people look at the differing moons as to distinguish when Shabbat is. Mm-hmm. We can't necessarily use that when we know for a fact that the moon has phases and has a full cycle to distinguish it being a full month, which is why we look for the new moon sighting to distinguish, a new moon has started. However, with the constitution of understanding the concept of 7 days as the Creator put forth within creation, we understand the counting of 7 days and needing to distinguish exactly what a day is in order to understand the rule of what a week is, comprising of 7 days. And so building these up into months is where we get into a month being 29 and 3/4 days, or some people thinking it's 28, or some people thinking it's 30 or 31, depending on which calendar or which record we're looking at. We have to understand that we have to come fully back to the Hebraic thought and understanding what the Hebraic language is breaking down and conveying, because this is the exact source and the references that our forefathers used and also put forth for their lineage, if you will, their descendants, who we claim to be. And if we are such, then we are trying to cultivate, if you will, and also reestablish and reinstill these concepts and this mentality, this thought process, to edify full Hebraic thought and culture, even though we are within captivity in this westernized, diaspora. So I hope that conveyed the most proper thought, but if not, we can certainly take any questions, and again, more reference information at those websites at the beginning of the video, for sure.
So definitely, Israel, we got to do better. We got to continue to turn back to the ways of our forefathers. Okay. Understanding this week is very important, and just segue, real point I want to make, also understanding that there are people in the Hebrew community who do not look at Yom Shishi and Shabbat on our Gregorian calendar, right, Friday evening to Saturday evening, as the Shabbat. There are those that hold that belief. Some hold the belief that it starts Tuesday evening and goes into Wednesday evening. Me personally, for those people that are doing it according to those ways, you're still counting 7 days in between. So hey, to each his own. But I have the understanding that it is Friday sunset, Saturday sunset, so to each his own. But for those who do go by the lunar Sabbath and have 8-9 days in between your Sabbath keeping, I'm going to need you guys to really think about what it is you're doing and understand that 7 is static, and truly wrap your minds around that, because we have to humble ourselves to what our forefathers, as Yehoshua just said, what our forefathers put on record and what we are to turn back to as their descendants.
Okay, and essentially it is what has set the precedence for the current calendar that exists today, that we all go off of. You know, they had to see the established rules of some sort in order to even create 7 block days on a sheet of paper to distinguish that this is a full week or this is a full month. And so in reverting back to the original thought that we didn't have all the technology and all those things, and reverting back to that original thought, and we understand that within the Hebrew context, his thought is one of the originating thoughts of civilization, then we certainly have to understand that the precedence that has been put forth within the language itself is of imperative nature. It's very important that we understand what's being conveyed in what it's telling us and instructing us to do. Simply because just as much as Nathaniel just mentioned, there are those who have differing opinions on Shabbat. There are also those who think that we shouldn't keep Shabbat at all. And so even within Israel, we understand this concept, and we're working to, again, edify and understand and bring back the full thought of Hebrew culture and why we do the things that we do, with reason and cause, of course, above all else, to serve as humble servants the Creator who created us and created Israel to begin with. So that's it on my piece, but I just wanted to follow up with good brother Nathaniel who just stated.
And just another real quick point, Israel, we got to get past also what days of the week are called on the Gregorian calendar. Okay, we're dealing with the count of 7 days, a Shabua. A count of 7 days does not change just because we are looking at a Gregorian calendar and it calls this date Monday and this date Tuesday and this date Wednesday.
Concepts.
We have to be able to see past that, because that is just a construct that was created by man. Absolutely. When ultimately the 7-day cycle was here since the beginning of creation.
If we believe the book.
We believe the book. And at creation, we know that the 7 days of creation, there it goes, bam. So I just wanted to make that point yet again. Israel, let's continue to do better. Turn back. We are the Most High's servants. So let's continue to do that. Let's be that light in this world for all to turn back into the Torah, to turn back to the Most High, to bring shalom into the world. Let's do it, Israel. I love you all. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom. Tov Yom Rishon.
Toda Rabah, Moa Yoel. Now count the coalition. Toda Rabah.